All right, everybody. Well, we have reached the top of the hour, which means we're about to get started. I first want to welcome everyone to the Machine Metrics webinar series. This installment, the Cloud Advantage, Benefits, Compliance, and Security. Jacob, next slide, please. So, firstly, a bit of an intro today. While the introduction of cloud-based data management systems has caused a bit of a culture shock for the manufacturing community, the benefits are far too significant to ignore. Increasingly, more companies are developing or moving their workloads to the cloud by the day, aiming to migrate almost everything to the cloud over the next few years. This digitization of data is enabling the manufacturers that are leveraging it to deliver competitive advantages in an ever-competitive landscape. Manufacturing organizations that have adopted the cloud are finding that when it comes to the benefits, the sky really is the limit. For our agenda today, we're going to quickly review who Machine Metrics is, who AWS is. Many of you probably know those guys already. And then we're going to dive quickly into the cloud basics. We're going to roll through some cloud facts for manufacturers, as well as discuss the future of manufacturing in the cloud. Next slide, Jacob. But before we get started, a couple quick notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send out a link to the recording after the webinar. So you will have that in your email within the next 24 hours. Questions are welcome and encouraged even. Please use the Q&A area within your Zoom navigation to ask a question at any time. I'll do my best to encourage that as we move on. Sometimes we get, a lot of questions, sometimes we don't, but you can always ask them along the way. And when we get to the Q&A section, we'll save some of those to ask our panelists. Speaking of our panelists, we've been fortunate enough to be joined by two rock stars today. Jacob Lozier, our co-founder and CTO. Say hey, Jacob. and Tom Jones, ecosystem solution architect at Amazon Web Services.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you both so much for joining us. We couldn't be any luckier to have you guys today. So just to get started, our first agenda item is and I'll try to be as brief as I can, a product explanation of who we are and what we do. So firstly, we are Machine Metrics. Machine Metrics is an industrial IoT platform for machines. We are accelerating manufacturers' digital transformation by providing an intuitive and flexible platform that easily collects and transforms data from any piece of manufacturing equipment into powerful, actionable applications that reduce machine downtime, enhance legacy processes, and drive increased profitability with manufacturing equipment. Next slide, Jacob. Right now, hundreds of manufacturers have connected thousands of machines to Machine Metrics across global factories. And our platform is enabling these companies to deliver the right data through the right information to the right person at the right time, so they can improve their machining performance and productivity, increase their capacity utilization, and ultimately win more business and remain globally competitive. The problem that we looked to solve originally was most shop floor digital transformations are stifled by an inability to get usable data from manufacturing equipment and digitally thread that data across an organization so it can enable actionability. Machine Metrics thus has three components to our platform. First, our Edge platform that features plug-and-play universal machine connectivity that instantly connects to modern PLCs and equipment. We also have the ability to add digital I/O and analog sensors to transform data into a standard structure across an entire fleet, making it instantly usable. Our IoT platform is our cloud platform, which is hosted by AWS, and it leverages custom infrastructure that is uniquely optimized for machine data ingestion. So we can deliver instant analytics and insights on top of that data, including machine performance and condition monitoring, and reporting via APIs or BI integrations, as well as extensibility of that data into any other system within your digital factory. Finally, to ensure that we drive immediate value, we deliver out-of-the-box apps that are designed for specific use cases that drive immediate value on the shop floor and across an organization, including real-time dashboarding, historical reporting, rules-based triggers for any shop floor data item or insight, and technical notifications that deliver optimized workflows to factory workers. Some of our top use cases include capacity analysis, machine productivity, bottleneck analysis, utilization reporting, OEE analysis, as well as predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance, and reduction of machine downtime. With machine metrics, manufacturers can now significantly expedite their time to value for their Industry 4.0 implementations. With that, I'm going to hand the baton over to Tom, and he can tell you a little bit about a company that you may already know.
Cool. Thanks, Graham. So many of you may already be familiar with AWS, Amazon Web Services. But for those of you who aren't, Amazon Web Services is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform, offering over 175 fully featured services from a global network of data centers. Millions of customers, including the fastest growing startups, largest enterprises, and leading government agencies, are using AWS to lower their costs, to become more agile, and to innovate faster.
So with that, Jacob and Tom are going to bring you guys through a presentation that we prepared. We hope you all enjoy it. And again, please make sure to ask any questions that you have through the Q&A section. Jacob, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Graham. So we're going to be going over some cloud basics, and what you see here is really what the cloud gives us the ability to do is to create a lower cost product that is more secure and more compliant than you might be able to build yourselves. It's all about building on top of the work that other folks have done. So we take a lot of advantage from the work that AWS has done, and we'll get into that more, with the ability to provide a very scalable, resilient product that's highly secure and has a tremendous amount of flexibility built in. So you can extend the product in ways that we would never imagine. We're also able to continuously offer upgrades and new features through the cloud. And you have the opportunity to try it before you buy it using the cloud. You don't have to take a huge capital investment in equipment in order to realize the benefits of the vast scalability that's offered by Amazon Web Services. So what's the truth about the cloud? We're going to go through a few facts about the cloud, and both Tom and I will discuss some points there. And we'll start off with the cloud is secure and compliant. So we build our solution on top of Amazon Web Services, and there are a number of different tools that come out of the box with Amazon Web Services that we take advantage of. And that's really important that we do, because it allows us to create a very secure environment for all of your data and give you the access that you need. Another thing to consider is that by centralizing that data, we reduce the surface area, so there are fewer attack points. We're able to actually very heavily control how data is accessed and how it is made available. So not having a bunch of disparate systems and having to manage that separately makes this a much more secure solution. All of the data is inside our Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, which is heavily controlled, and we have a number of security engineers that are making sure that that's built appropriately.
So at AWS, security is our top priority. Enterprises who move to the AWS cloud or startups achieve a higher security posture than in their legacy environments. Along with that greater agility that I mentioned earlier. So regardless of your size, the size of your company or your investment, you inherit all of the benefits of our expertise, tested against the strictest of third-party assurance frameworks. So all of our customers get the benefit of all of the work that we've done to support all of our other customers. And this security starts with our core infrastructure. We'll talk some more about our infrastructure in a minute, but our global infrastructure is custom built for the cloud and designed to meet the most stringent security requirements in the world. Our infrastructure is monitored 24/7 to ensure the confidentiality, the integrity, and availability of our customers' data. And as an AWS customer, regardless of your size, like I said, you inherit all of those benefits. And the other piece that I want to highlight on here, on this slide, is that we have a big focus on automation as well. And so automation helps reduce the amount of noise and manual work that your engineers and your security teams have to pay attention to, so they can focus their expertise where it really matters for your business. Next slide.
There's one thing that I'll bring up after you're done with your section.
Sure. Yeah, and this was just a slide that I put in here to talk about a different industry, right? One, obviously, where security is paramount, and that's the financial industry. And, you know, we see a quote here from the Chief Information Security Officer of FINRA saying that security in AWS is superior to our on-premises data center across several dimensions. So it's not just that we're saying this, our customers are saying this. And once again, those are benefits that everyone can inherit.
Before I move on to this next section, I just wanted to make another point. Machine Metrics is fortunate enough to be an industrial competency partner with AWS. And to get to that level, we had to work with AWS to understand all of the various security requirements that would be necessary for that particular level of partnership. And we met those standards. And thanks to the many services that are available in AWS, that was possible. But it's not just that the services are there, you have to use them and use them correctly. And Machine Metrics is recognized as an expert in that area through this program.
Yeah, Jacob, let me pile on there for a second. So we don't have a slide in here about the industrial software competency, but essentially the competency is where AWS sits down and works very closely with our partners like Machine Metrics to review their architecture, look at their architecture, make sure it's following the AWS best practices in a number of different pillars, things like operations, security, reliability, and so on, to make sure that you as the customer will have the best possible experience. And that's a very rigorous process. And, you know, I tip my hat to the Machine Metrics team that they leaned in and really worked with us to make sure that that they're compliant and that you are going to have the best experience.
Yeah, thank you. It was a good experience to go through, and security is so paramount to everything that we do in the cloud. So it's very important that we have that. All right, so security and scalability and resiliency. This is all about our ability to expand into the vast amount of resources that AWS has. As our customer group, as our customer base grows, or even as your organization takes more and more advantage of our platform, we can just continually expand our use of Amazon services. And we don't even actually have to do anything. We've been able to take advantage of a number of automatically scalable solutions within AWS so that as the demands increase, our use of AWS increases. So it's an automated system that continuously grows. Now, where that benefits you is that you can just add many more machines and add more factories and have visibility across the entire globe through one platform. And as far as the resiliency goes, AWS is made of a series of regions where all of their data centers are located. And within each region, there are things called availability zones, and they're also comprised of many data centers. And those data centers are separated by miles, each with their own sets of security, physical security, which Tom can maybe get into briefly. But really, it's just about having that redundancy and having all of our infrastructure spread across all of those zones with several levels of redundancy, so that if any one system fails, you will not notice because another system is there to pick up the slack. The data is replicated in many places, and the systems that are processing that data are located in many different areas simultaneously, so that it can automatically pick up if something fails.
Yeah, just to add a little more detail behind what you're saying there, Jacob. So, an AWS region is a physical location in the world where we have multiple availability zones, and an availability zone, or AZ as we like to call them, they consist of each AZ consists of one or more discrete data centers, each with redundant power, redundant networking, redundant connectivity. And these availability zones exist on isolated fault lines, floodplains, electrical grids, and so on, to substantially reduce the chance of a simultaneous failure. And that allows you to have the resiliency of performing real-time replication and of reliability of multiple physical locations within a geographic, region, to use the same term again, but within a geographic place. And we can see a diagram of a region here on the slide. One thing I'll also call out here is we can see in that little box in the middle that there's 2 transit centers. So each region also has 2 independent, fully redundant transit centers that allow traffic to cross the AWS network, and enabling regions to connect to the global network. And we also, once the AWS traffic hits our network backbone, we don't use other backbone providers. We use our own network, and I'll show you a little more detail about that. Let's go on to the next slide. So, like I said, an availability zone, and I'm just telling you this so that you have a background on how Machine Metrics is building a robust platform for you. But the availability zone is a fully isolated partition of the AWS global infrastructure. And this means that it's physically separate from any other availability zone by meaningful distance, few miles or kilometers. And that gives you sub 10 millisecond latency between availability zones. And that, once again, gives you the ability to have that geographic or that redundancy within a specific geographic location. Previously, you might have had to build that redundancy, say, in another country or across the world from where you are, so that you had some type of reliability or failover. You no longer have to do that. You can do that inside an AZ. You can still have deployments to other regions if you like, and that could be for reliability, but it could also be for performance reasons. Maybe you want to be closer to your manufacturing facility for latency, for example. Let's go on to our next slide. So here, we've been talking about availability zones and regions. I want to go up a level, and let's talk about the global infrastructure. So today, AWS has 22 geographical regions, and 69 availability zones, and 200 points of presence. And looking at the global map, you can see the existing regions in blue and the announced regions in orange. Let's take a quick tour of how AWS got to this point of globe-spanning infrastructure. So for the first 5 years of AWS's existence, so we started in 2006, we deployed 4 regions in our first 5 years, and you can see them here: California, Virginia, Ireland, and Singapore. And then the next 5 years, let's move forward, we rolled out 7 more regions, and then let's move forward one more. And then in the last 4 years, so 2016 to today, we've rolled out 10 regions, and we have 4 more coming online that are being built now. So that gives you an understanding of the pace at which we're growing and the pace at which we're creating infrastructure our partners like Machine Metrics can use to help you support your business. And then connecting all of these regions together is our global network of network connectivity, right? So we offer a low latency, low packet loss, and high overall network quality networking. And this is achieved with a fully redundant 100 gigabyte per second network that circles the globe via transoceanic cables that run over tens of thousands of kilometers and up to 10 kilometers under the sea. The network is designed to survive link failures, and no single link can have a significant impact on the overall network. We do deep monitoring and have extreme operational rigor of the AWS network, including fully automated software that detects and mitigates normal faults, as well as gray failures, which are hard to detect partial failure modes. All of this provides greater fault tolerance for you. And the other thing I'll say about that is we make connecting to that network really easy. So companies can connect their existing data centers to the AWS network. You can even establish a fiber connection directly into the AWS cloud using our Direct Connect service.
So the third fact that we'd like to go over is the adaptability and flexibility that the cloud really enables. And it's all about building on top of, like I said earlier in the presentation, building on top of all the work that was done by someone else. And we take advantage of all the work that AWS has done to make our product for our customers, but it doesn't stop there. You can access your data from a variety of different devices and locations. It's cloud-based. It's available wherever you are, and you can be assured that the security that we have in place makes so that only you will have access to that data and the people that you want to have access to that data. And we can scale up very quickly. So as new products are rolled out, as we come out with a new version, it's a cloud-based product, everyone will get that new version. It's just part of our offering. As we add new products, those will be available to you, and it's part of the offering. As far as extensibility goes, like I said earlier, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with what you get from us. We offer a very good baseline. Tremendous value can be had with the apps that come out of the box with our product. But there's more that you can do that's more specific to your daily operations. You can take advantage, you don't have to, but you can take advantage of our number of APIs that we have available to build new applications that are specific to your use case and really give yourself a leg up on your competition. Our APIs give you access to every single data point that we can collect from your equipment, it's just an amazing way for you to be able to build more and more stuff on top of that platform. Another point that I'll make has to do with the data that comes off the equipment. This is one thing that a lot of solutions miss, and connecting to various pieces of equipment is actually really challenging. Each different control has a different protocol that you're communicating with, and the data points that you gather off of those machines vary wildly. So for example, you're talking to one machine, and its definition of whether it's doing useful work or not could be very different from the data points that come off of a different machine describing that it's doing useful work. And we're able to take the data from all of those different sources and normalize it so that when it hits our cloud and you actually consume it either through our applications or your own, that data has meaning that's consistent across all the different pieces of equipment.
All right, so just to back up, to bolster what Jacob was saying there, I like to show this slide, and you probably can't even read it because there's so many things on the slide. Don't worry, we're not going to test you on this. This just shows the number of services that AWS offers. So like I said, over 170 different discrete services today. You can think of those as building blocks that companies like Machine Metrics, or perhaps yourselves in conjunction with Machine Metrics, excuse me, can use to build a solution. That all of those services give you the ability then to be more agile, which I think is what you were really trying to, one of the points you were trying to highlight there, Jacob. So let's move forward. So I want to give a quick example. At AWS, well, if you think about most organizations, maybe not most, but that is what the slide says. Companies follow an activity-based model. So they're using a serial or waterfall approach to development, where work is passed from one employee to another. However, at Amazon, we've taken a slightly different approach. We've evolved to a different approach. And let's move forward to the next slide. And we call this a two-pizza team. And the idea is that a two-pizza team is the size of a team is no larger than you can feed with two large pizzas. And that two-pizza team owns whatever that is, say it's a service or a product, soup to nuts, front to back. And that, because that's a small team and they own the development and the operations of whatever that product is, they can be very agile. And so having those building blocks and taking away the undifferentiated heavy lifting gives these small two-pizza teams the ability to innovate more quickly.
We use the two-pizza roll as well.
Yeah,
super powerful.
love it. When it sticks, I mean, everybody likes pizza. So.
That's right. Good reward system.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of how AWS services could be combined to serve a manufacturing needs, we put together a block diagram showing the various components in a typical manufacturing facility. You know, we see on the left-hand side of the screen here, the production, where we have maybe devices at the edge, maybe we have a historian, maybe we have our SCADA systems. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, we have our manufacturing operations. So we've got operational data, maybe we're tying into our PLM or ERP systems. We're doing analytics on top of all of that data through some type of analytics tool or even using machine learning. And then to make that a little more real, let's go to the next slide and see how some of these building blocks that we were talking about earlier could fit into that diagram. So on this slide, we see on the left-hand side a factory with various machines in it. And there, all of the colored little boxes that you see in here are various AWS services that could be combined to you know, store that data, to sort that data, to enhance that data, and so on. So Once again, there's not going to be a test on this, but I just wanted to highlight the, the way that some of these services might come together to meet a business need. And this is essentially what Machine Metrics is doing for you by offering you their products that are built on top of AWS.
Right. Yeah, our platform echoes a lot of these similar patterns. So we're taking a lot of that complexity of building and maintaining a system like this away so you can focus on your business case. So here's a case study I wanted to bring up, just mainly to highlight two major points. So this customer really wanted to get an understanding of how their machines were being utilized so that they could figure out whether they were using their machines effectively. And so they were previous to Machine Metrics, they were doing a lot of manual data collection on whiteboards or on paper, and it was really inefficient and inaccurate. It was whether the operator decided to write down that the machine started and when it stopped, or they were maybe walking around to the machines and capturing a few data points, but it was very inconsistent. And then with Machine Metrics, within a month, and less for many of our customers, it can be a matter of days, connecting all of the machines across the floor, they were able to get Machine Metrics up and running on their own, and be able to leverage our product. And on the right, you can see some of the key stats, but the biggest one I'll point out is that days to ROI. So what that's referring to is how long it took them, with how significant their savings were over the first 60 days, made it so that they basically paid for a year's worth of our product in that time. So in 60 days, they fully realized the cost of Machine Metrics, and everything after that was a win.
Yeah, I think that the time to value is super important. And so I wanted to throw out a couple of use cases as well. Here's one that's probably near and dear to all of our hearts. Georgia Pacific, they make toilet paper and other paper products, which seem to be in high demand right now. So they produce hundreds of thousands of paper and tissue rolls every day. And this paper production process is a very delicate and complex operation because tears or breaks in the paper can happen while converting this giant, massive parent product into consumer-ready, bath or tissue products. And if a break or a tear occurs, it leads to machine downtime that can cost Georgia Pacific, up to $250,000 a day. So it's essential that they maintain the machine uptime, and they can only do that if they have good insight into roles or why roles that are likely to break. And they were able to build an analytics solution using AWS to help optimize many of their key manufacturing processes in their facilities. For example, they eliminated 30% of those paper product tears during the manufacturing process. The other thing that they were able to do was predict, so we're getting into the predictive maintenance aspect. They were able to predict equipment failure 60 to 90 days in advance so they can reduce unplanned downtime. So overall, using AWS, they can ensure that they're producing the highest quality product running at the fastest possible rate so that they can best serve all of their customers, us, when we're busy hoarding toilet paper. And then one other scenario I want to talk about is SKF. So SKF is a ball bearing manufacturer, and they started their work with AWS in the smart bearing space. I didn't know that was really a thing, but I love the fact that they're so forward thinking about this. So think of a smart bearing as a smart product. And an example of where this might be used would be in one of those giant wind turbines that's producing electricity. And previously, they would have to send a maintenance technician up into the windmill to address a lubrication issue with these big bearings that the blades are turning on. And so they created a product called System 24, which is an auto lubricator connected to the ball bearing. And based on machine learning algorithms, lubrication needs can be predicted based on the various load and other stresses on the system. And they don't have to deploy a technician anymore to do that. And of course, they can get into the predictive maintenance aspect of this because they're capturing telemetry off of the windmills. And that gets into small, spare parts sales and things like that. But the piece that I thought was really interesting about this is that it also allows them to move from just being a component supplier, so just selling bearings, to being able to sell bearing hours as a service. So this is one of the trends that I'm seeing in the industry where companies are moving from just being a supplier to being a service, whether that's ball bearings or any kind of other offering. It's really cool to see the shift where businesses are saying, all right, what's a real value we provide? Let's just offer that as a service because now we have the insight to know what's going on with our equipment.
Great segue. So we're actually starting to see that trend ourselves, and Graham, please jump in, but equipment as a service is kind of something we see as a future thing that can be enabled by the cloud. Having that direct access to the machine data can allow for a number of use cases, one of which being machine builders, instead of selling the machine to the customer, to the manufacturer, to sell it as a service. And Graham, please.
Yeah, I mean, and Tom and I got excited around this. We were early before we started this webinar because we see many businesses, not just pivoting but building towards a future of this model, especially in this time. As it turns out, the efficacy and operation of a piece of equipment, as we're learning even from ventilators today, tends to be the product of so many different manufacturers, right? For example, for us, Machine Metrics, we're very focused on, manufacturing equipment, and when you're looking at a CNC machine, many of these components of the machine, whether it be, the machine itself or, the bar loader or the tooling on the equipment, or even the way that the operator interacts with that machine are all different components of that machine's general function. And when you start kind of separating those different pieces and enabling access to the data from each of those pieces through the cloud, we're starting to find that the business models related to the usage and even sales of those various components are bound to change. This represents fantastic opportunities for both parties, in that machine builders may be able to deliver usage-based models around equipment, which could limit the expenses of any manufacturer up front around a piece of equipment. But I think more than anything, it actually is well representative of something that AWS and Machine Metrics actually take very much to heart in our alignment of best-in-class ecosystems. By delivering data to those that understand and consume it the best, we're able to align ecosystems around software, equipment, digital factory building, and so on and so forth, to optimize the experience that any consumer can have around whether it's a piece of equipment or a piece of software. And I think that's very exciting for the future of not just equipment, but the way that we consume and interact with things.
Yeah, absolutely. And even some specific examples here, and that they're listed, but to go into one of them at least, as a service provider, somebody that sold the machine that wants to add the value of maintaining that equipment or offering support to maintain that equipment, for them to be the ones that call you, the owner of the machine, and say, hey, I think that machine's going to fail. Let me go send somebody out there with the right part before it fails. Then you have no downtime, right? Having that data available and making it actionable to the right people, the value is tremendous.
Yeah, I really see that move from preventative maintenance to predictive maintenance as a huge trend, and that's what's enabling the whatever as a service. But it's really that predictive maintenance that is enabling that.
At least
Absolutely.
in part, I absolutely agree with you. But there's still tremendous value you can get just from the descriptive layer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And even more specifically, the real-time nature of a product like Machine Metrics with the benefit of AWS. That real-time nature allows you to act on situations immediately, as opposed to waiting a week later when you get that part report up and you find out that you can't give your customer what you told them you were going to give them. You have to go and figure it out and backtrack. Having that data in real time, you can have your supervisor get texted once the part production drops to 95%. Maybe don't go that aggressive at first, but then they can know, get out on the floor, figure out if there's a training opportunity or some way that they can help. But yeah, these kind of insights in real time affect the entire ecosystem with the enablement.
In many ways, if you even break it down another layer, you look at access to data really being kind of the foundation, right? That access to data is what enables us to build that roadmap to predictive and then even prescriptive analytics. But being able to first even have the data to assess what's happening is how companies can then leverage the cloud to have that real-time remote access from everywhere, reduce costs, and deliver additional models around that machine, many of which may even run not even on the cloud, but actually at the edge, right? And that's where the kind of the prescriptive analytic layer comes. But the value is I think in that that ability to enable that those initial processing and insights to be had, so you can start delivering some of these models. And it's really cool to see this use case starting in the world that we're living in.
I had somebody say to me recently, they said, data is the new oil. And I think that's so true. What you're talking about is being able to unlock that data, right? And then once you have access to it, there's all kinds of things that you can, and value that you can add or extract from it.
Yeah, one of the other ones, and Jacob, if you want to go to the next slide, that we get asked about a lot, that we also see as a current and future really use cases, in supply chain visibility. I mean, today we're looking at the reorganization of global supply chains everywhere to support, the extreme demand for, again, something like ventilators, for example, and sometimes we're talking about at a machine level, like just being able to balance a line, right, making sure that all parts are being delivered accordingly throughout this line. But when you look at the supply chain as its own line, right, how do we enable this line, right, to work perfectly in sync across various tiers of production all the way up to the OEM level? And we see very much the future of this being in cloud-based supply chain visibility solutions. Guys, feel free to comment on that.
Just saying, like, as a tier one supplier, how valuable is it to know that when parts are going to come, and from the tier 3 or tier 2, knowing whether there's actual need for those parts before they need them, so that you can just kind of get a head start. It creates that layer of communication that's necessary for the efficiency in that.
Yeah, I think that there's also an opportunity to, many of the machines that we're working with are very complex, and parts may come from, subcontractors. And, there's an opportunity, for example, for a machine builder to understand more accurately what version of what product is in what machine, and then tie that back to failure rates. You could tie it all the way back to a batch or revision of parts from one of those subcontractors. So yeah, it's another use case I've seen.
Yeah, I love that one. Jacob, just for our time's sake, I want to make sure we get to a question, so we have a number of questions. Next slide, is that the question slide?
It is.
It is. Beautiful. We've got a number of good ones that have come in. And I'll start with this one just because in the end, this is at the heart of our presentation today. What is the advantage that a company gets when using machine metrics versus just AWS alone? I think we both have a good answer for this. And Tom, maybe I'll start and then, you could even take over. But, one of the reasons why I was most inspired when I was with AWS in Hanover last year was, and I actually, I was also at a McKinsey and World Economic Forum report in New York, even just a month ago. And essentially the top reasons why industrial IoT projects have failed to get off the ground is that many companies are kind of trying to go at it alone, right? And when I met with AWS, one of the things that really inspired me about our partnership and working with them is that they take not just a build everything from scratch model, but much more a buy and build approach to the digital factory, and an alignment of best in breed systems provide the kind of the ultimate base layer to deliver not just a fully custom experience of a solution, but in reality something that can get off the ground very quickly. And for machine metrics, for example, one of our go-to-markets with AWS is that we've built hundreds of software adapters that allow us to just immediately with no rebuilding at all, plug and play and get that oil, right? Get that data and transform that data into standard models immediately from any piece of equipment, right? And one of the issues that we've heard from many manufacturers is just that inability to get data and then not just to get it, but to transform it into a standard model, oftentimes prohibits so many other facets of digital factory implementation and digital threading of that data. So for example, AWS, as you saw on that page, does so many things so well, so much better than we could ever even imagine, right? And that's, and to be honest, that makes a lot of sense to us because alignment in best in breed systems will enable your digital factory to move a lot quicker. So in many ways, machine metrics has a unique ability to unlock the data from your equipment, and then through any sort of integration with the rest of your digital factory, we can then immediately accelerate the efficacy and the value creation driven through those other efforts within your AWS digital factory. Any of my other commenters care to take that one on?
So that, I mean, that gets back to the undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? Why should machine metrics invest in, whatever, building a new database, right? When it's not about the database, it's about how can you capture the data? How can you unlock the data? How can you normalize the data so that you have insights that are actionable, right? That's why this partnership is so awesome, right? So we're taking away that heavy lifting that's frankly, it's table stakes, right? Everybody's got to do it. And then you're adding, the machine metrics magic on top of that.
I'd like to add a different spin to it too.
Yeah.
Why not both? So there are many use cases where AWS will be appropriate, and you should definitely jump in there. But if you use the Machine Metrics product, within minutes, you could have a machine connected data streaming and actionable insights. And then you could spin up some AWS systems to extend it in ways that we haven't thought of, that gives you a certain advantage that will set you apart. So I would say in some cases, both might be the answer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, my role here is really just to support Machine Metrics. Machine Metrics is already using AWS, so you don't have to go and use AWS in conjunction with Machine Metrics. They're already taking advantage of what we're doing. You do, as Jacob was just saying, have the option. You could do both if you have more advanced needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a lot of the questions that we've been getting on the side here are, you know, what if you're already using AWS? Can Machine Metrics integrate into your current efforts? You know, Jacob, I'll, you know, just let you kind of give but the short answer is yes. Jacob,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what pieces you've built, what pieces give you that undifferentiated heavy lifting, like what don't you have to do to provide value to your organization, and what cost is it to continue to maintain those pieces that you might have that Machine Metrics does. You can start to ease those out using something like Machine Metrics instead. It really depends on the use case, but absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, that actually leads me to another question. I had a couple questions on this, which was, you know, if you have, you know, AWS credits, can you leverage those for Machine Metrics? Which is funny. I actually got that a couple times.
So.
You actually can.
Yes.
In
the
AWS marketplace. You know, we do have a marketplace listing. You know, it's one of the beauties of being an AWS partner is that, you know, in the marketplace, you can leverage those credits to, you know, to get started using Machine Metrics and accelerate any of your other digital factory initiatives. You know, I think this is a good one. You know, just diving directly into this, what are some ways your customers have built on top of Machine Metrics using other tools? You know, and I think that's a good one that, I mean, just Jacob, as you've been kind of answering some of those questions, and Tom, I'd love for you to even extrapolate that into other use cases that maybe we haven't even dreamt of before. You know, what are some of the ways that we're extending that data into other systems?
Sure. So at least one area, very simple use case, is to just build reports that we haven't thought of. So just from the BI side, how can you connect that data into Power BI or Clipfolio or some tool that allows you to visualize your production over long spans of time, or slice and dice it in various ways? That's one basic example. Another one is to take the high frequency data that we can capture on many pieces of equipment and stream that into your cloud, or just make it available in your cloud, so you can start to develop models around that high frequency data to predict certain failures. We're doing a lot of work in that area and have a lot of promising things that are coming out of that work, but it's a wide open field, and each case deserves to be investigated. So that's another area that can be explored as well.
Yeah, I've certainly seen, you know, in order to do some of the machine learning and creation of, you know, models that consume, or anyway, I've seen the what am I trying to say here? The machine learning be another use case.
Yeah. Also, we have a full workflow system where, as data is coming into Machine Metrics, you can set up rules to trigger other things. Not to get super technical, but you can use webhooks to fire off events in other systems. So you have a very connected, real-time, eventful mechanism to keep all of your various best-of-breed tools live and accurate.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm getting in questions as we go. So you know, leveraging you know, machine metrics, this is actually another great question, first of all. Do we have, our apps, out of the box, low code, no code? Can customers, extend or create their own applications? And I think that this is a good question when you're looking at both the edge and the cloud. That obviously this one's more towards Jacob. So
sure. Sure. So first of all, yes. When you install machine metrics, you get a bunch of out-of-the-box, no code required applications. You can then, if you so choose, use our APIs to build new applications, ones that we've never thought of before. And we have documentation and walkthroughs, and we can meet to go through that. And that's generally on the cloud side, so you can build applications there. But we're also enabling extension at the edge. So as we're collecting all this high frequency data to learn about when failures might happen, we're pushing those algorithms down to the edge. And there might be some use cases that you need to develop your own algorithm for, and you'll have the opportunity to push that logic down to the edge too. So you can act in the cloud or act on the edge. And depending on the use case, each is a valid approach.
I'd be interested in Tom's, because I think, this is a question we get all the time, and I'd be really interested in this. And I think, some of the things that AWS also has a number of services that they enable, kind of like, different data streams to, enter other use cases that may help companies even build their own applications powered by this data. I've seen other applications within the AWS ecosystem, or even directly AWS related products. Is this where the power of partnership, really kind of gets driven to the next level? Is that if there's something that machine metrics isn't able to accomplish, right? Our partnership in many ways provides kind of the backbone for whatever else is yet to come.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I look at, what Jacob was just saying about having webhooks, right? All of our services have APIs that are exposed. So it's relatively easy to extend, beyond machine metrics into AWS if you need to, right? I would also just say, that's a potential business opportunity or a feature request for machine metrics if you have to do that, right? So, I know, when I was on the purchasing side, it's nice to have that one throat to choke, right? So, there's an advantage to that, but there's also the advantage of, hey, we're here if you need us. We've got lots of services. You can extend out using those webhooks or APIs. Yeah. So, I think that is one of the great things about the partnership. And, as we were talking about earlier in the webinar, that agility, that flexibility is something that machine metrics has, that their customers can also have, but machine metrics has, and it gives you the ability to innovate quickly on behalf of your customer.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Well, listen, I just want to quickly, before Jacob, would you mind go to the next slide? Before people sign off, I just wanted to note a couple really things before we have to lose everybody. Machine Metrics has launched a COVID-19 response program for any manufacturer who is either in medical device manufacturing and or delivering precision components to help deliver life-saving solutions to our nation, the world in this time of need. We are offering our platform for free, to anybody who wants to leverage data and our remote monitoring platform. We provide a number of use cases to enable remote work and social distancing on the shop floor. And it would be an honor to help support any company in this time, deliver and help them provide solutions to this crisis that we're all dealing with today. So you can find more information about that when we send out our follow-up link. And next slide, Jacob. I think there's another slide, and there it is. And we will be hosting our, these panels have been so popular that we're just going to continue the series. So we do have a live report coming, the impact of COVID-19 on global manufacturing. Initially, we were thinking that we were going to host this April 21st. We may have to push it to the next week because we're kind of adding even more people to this panel. We expect it to be a really big one, and we're pretty excited about it. So just stay tuned. We'll be sure to send you the information ahead of time, and we hope you all join us for that. And I just want to thank our two panelists today. They've been amazing. Jacob, I know that there's one more call to action, maybe on the next slide.
That is it. Just that last.
That is not it. That was it. That was all of our call to action. But thank you all for joining us. I really want to thank Tom so much. He's been such a great person to work with on this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us.